for what's going on in today's geopolitical climate. Another thing that I want to bring up to you, Scott, is I had a lot of emails from people of the program when you're on the program, and they're generally concerned. First of all, of course, there are people that are out trying to get information out. I think there's Jackson Hinkle. He's getting information out, but there's generally people concerned about your safety since, you are a voice of reason in this community. And, we all that have channels greatly appreciate your contribution to coming on and talking to our audiences. Can we talk about, the silencing of voices? We see that they tried to do it this weekend with Elon Musk and last weekend with Elon Musk by telling him categorically that all these advertisers are moving away from X. And then he systematically went through and said, okay, I'm going to go nuclear on Media Matters on Monday. So your safety, are you concerned about it? I mean, it's got to cross your mind.
Well, I mean, I'm not suicidal. I'm aware. Look, I've been on the Mirotvorets hit list for some time now. And there are elements in the Ukrainian government that very much want to see me silenced, and preferably from their point of view, permanently silenced. So yeah, you got to pay attention. We have some nut jobs living just down the road from me. They have a camp which is, they have a park called Heroes Park where Stepan Bandera's statue and other statues of these wonderful Ukrainian nationalist murderer Nazi sympathizers are worshipped by a very politically active Ukrainian American community. So yeah, it's something that you pay attention to. I received rudimentary training in counterterrorism and anti-terrorism when I was in the Marine Corps. Some of the skill set was pretty cool, high-speed defensive driving. So if they ever try and ambush me on the road, I think I still got that skill set, so I might be able to get away. Other stuff, I mean, look, if they want to kill you, they're going to kill you. That's just the bottom line. And so, if there's, it is what it is. I'm smart. I take, precautions, but I'm not going to live my life, especially here in the United States, in some sort of paranoid frenzy, worried about what's going to happen. I'm not stupid. I keep my radar up, but then you basically have to just get on with your life. I mean, they want to silence you, and so the best way not to be silenced is don't shut up. I mean, there's a comment in there, for a silenced man, Scott, I can hear you pretty often. Well, that's because you can't silence me. You can deplatform me. I mean, there was a while there, if you watched me on YouTube, you didn't get to watch me on YouTube because YouTube booted me off. They've now allowed me to come back. Other platforms, will, I'm sure at some point in time, be put under pressure to keep voices like myself and others, off. X, former Twitter, is under a lot of pressure. Elon Musk, fortunately, is a free speech proponent, and he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's fighting for free speech, and I will continue to do so. I believe you are doing so as well. It is what it is, but you just got to be smart. Look, if it gets to the point where the Banderists and the Zionists have to kill people to win a debate, they already lost the debate. So I'll just keep speaking, and I encourage everybody else to keep speaking too. The greatest weapon to be used in an environment where people are trying to limit speech is more free speech. Just keep speaking. Just keep doing what you're doing, and leave it up to the discerning audience to decide whether or not your voice has any weight, has any relevance, has any merit. That's the ultimate arbiter. If you have to go around and shoot people or deplatform people in order to win a debate, then you've, like I said, you've already lost it. So I'll keep doing what I do, and I encourage other people to keep doing what you do. We can disagree. That's great. Again, I'm not trying to deplatform anybody. I'm not trying to silence anybody. All I'm saying is that there's an alternative point of view out there, sometimes multiple points of view, and they should all be heard so that the average listener, whether you're an American citizen or from anywhere in the world, you get empowered by knowledge and information. That's the most important thing. The most dangerous person in the world is that individual who thinks on their own because they have been empowered with knowledge and information, and they're not reliant upon anybody to tell them how to think, what the facts are. And programs like this help promote an alternative point of view. I don't want to call them alternative facts, because there's no such thing as an alternative fact. A fact is a fact. But maybe an emphasis on a fact set that is otherwise overlooked. So again, thanks for having me. And yeah, don't worry about my safety. I'm good to go. Now, of course, I'm going to say that, and tomorrow they're going to blow up my car. But whatever.
God, don't say that, Scott. Oh my God. Okay. let's pivot to another question I have. Do you think the information that the IDF, the Israeli government, if we went back a year and a half ago, where Twitter, and I want to zero in just a little bit more on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, do you think that has helped a lot in debunking what the IDF has to say, and maybe caught their propaganda machine off guard, where now, what used to take 10 to 20 years to prove people like Colin Powell wrong can take the matter of an hour with these internet sleuths out there that go on Twitter and say, nope, gotcha, got you at this 1 minute 47 seconds 0.03. You had a gun here. Well, 1.04. Now we rewound it. We watched it again, and boom, there's 2 guns, or something like that. I mean, has that changed the landscape?
Look, it has. I mean, we're dealing with an international community that is linked. It's when you do a podcast like this, it's not just an American audience that's watching. There's a European audience, there's a Chinese audience, there's a Russian audience, there's a Middle Eastern audience, and they're all watching. We're all seeing the same thing, real time, live. And when you have millions of eyeballs, critical eyeballs, looking at something, they're going to pick it out. It's, a lie works if you're talking to an ignorant audience, and they're not empowered to to expose the lie. But the global audience it's virtually impossible to lie to them, because they are empowered with so many different perspectives. So it's one thing to speak to a limited audience. There are people. Let's just be honest. If I pulled 1,000 people from my community and put them in an auditorium and tried to tap into their collected knowledge of the Middle East, it might be a very limited limited amount of knowledge. And so they're easily, they're susceptible to being misled by data, because they're not in a position to question the data. If you get somebody who dresses up nicely, speaks properly, and in America, the best thing to do is get somebody with a British accent, because they automatically sound intelligent, and you have them speak to them in a calm way, they're going to go, oh, this is good. But you have that same person broadcast this on the internet, and you're going to have people going, that's not right. That's a lie. Now, you also have people calling out a lie when it's not, because there's the opposite. The danger of the internet is there's no filter. And, so we have a lot of people who are doing good stuff on the internet, but we have a lot of people who aren't doing good stuff, meaning that they're deliberately trying to, promote lies by, muddying the water, etc. This is where, again, we have to respect the viewer, the customer, the audience on the internet, to be discerning. But we also have to be tolerant of the fact that, because we're operating as this wild, wild west of information, that it's going to be rough. It's going to get sloppy. It's not going to be as polished as, CNN or MSNBC or BBC. It's going to be what it is. And but I think it's beautiful. I think what we're seeing here is the empowerment of a global population. And look, what's the first thing that happens when people don't want their audience to think, or their constituencies? They shut down the internet. Because by doing so, you immediately stop the ability of information to be flowing freely. And sometimes, believe me, there's times when I'm like, man, I just wish they'd shut that channel down. But then I'm thinking, there's people who I think the same thing about the things that I say. And again, the The best antidote to bad speech is more free speech, is more speech, more speech, more speech. Get as many different points of view out there. No censorship. And it's taken everybody by surprise, especially Israel. Israel is a nation that is accustomed to controlling the media in the United States and in Europe, to control the narrative. They're accustomed to the default mode being support Israel at all costs, automatically condemn those who are opposed to Israel. That's been the default mode for the longest time. And they have, the two big cards they play. You're an anti-Semite. That's the biggest one. The second you're critical of Israel, it's anti-Semitism. They play that card. And then the other one, of course, is the Holocaust, the sympathy card. The Holocaust did this, that, and the other thing. My relatives, this, that, and the other thing. Therefore, you should never question what I'm doing today, because by questioning me, you're somehow shaming the memory of the Holocaust. And they've played those two cards over and over and over again. But right now, what's happening is I think people are recognizing that, first of all, being anti-Zionist doesn't mean you're anti-Jewish at all. And so the notion that anti-Zionism automatically equates to anti-Semitism, it's being pushed back. There's being pushed back by people like me who are saying, no. I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not anti-Jewish. I'm actually pro-Israel, and I'll defend a Jewish population as much as I'll defend any population. I'm an American, free religion, baby. You come to this country, you should be allowed to practice religion, do whatever you want, free of outside. And if there's people out there saying we're going to take down that synagogue or we're going to do that, no, you won't. I'll be one of the first people standing out there defending a synagogue, defending a Jewish cultural center with my life if necessary, because they're Americans and they deserve that protection. But that's not Zionism. That's Jewish faith, Jewish religion, Jewish culture. Zionism is something completely different. Zionism, especially political Zionism, is about using the Jewish faith in a way to elevate Israel, this Zionist Israel, this biblical Israel, this Eretz Israel, into an modern day version of the Aryan nation of Adolf Hitler. They're talking about, we are the supreme people. We are the chosen people. I always like that one. God chose us. Didn't choose me. Didn't choose you. Didn't choose China. Didn't choose Africa. You're telling me God is very selective in who he chooses. So God made man in his own image, but he doesn't like 99.99999% of us, only the Jews. Only God loves the Jews. No, that's stupid. I mean, if you're Jewish and you believe, that's okay. I call stupid a lot of evangelical Christians. I call stupid too. A lot of fanatical Muslims I'll call stupid. I'm an equal opportunity insult artist when it comes to that. But the point is, if you're saying that Israel is superior to anything in the Holy Land, that there can be nothing else in the Holy Land but Israel. And it's not just Israel's 67 borders. They're talking, when you look at the map that these political Zionists put out, they're taking over Syria, Lebanon, moving into Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. They're talking about taking over the whole thing. And these guys are in power. It's not like these are a bunch of fanatics, hanging out in their mother's basement, typing on the computer all day long. These are guys who are actually ministers in the Israeli government as we speak, articulating policies based upon this premise. That can't be supported. But we're not allowed to condemn that today. We're not allowed to question that because we're automatically called anti-Semite at that point in time. It's like the phrase, God bless the United States of America. You're 100% correct. Again, my wife tells me, do not read the comments, but every once in a while I see one that has to be. You're 100% correct, the person who wrote that. Look, I love America. I love America, and I love my country. But when I hear an American politician say, God bless America, I mean, that's not bad. I don't mind that. Please, God bless us. We need all the blessing we can get. Reach down and touch us. Make it all go away. Make us good again. Please, please, please. But the way it's done is it's used to promote the notion of American exceptionalism, meaning God bless America, but goddamn the rest of the world. Meaning all you don't count. Only America. Only America counts. Only America has been touched by his Lord. And that's absurd. That's absurd. Even if you don't believe in monotheism, if you don't believe in the God of Christianity, the God of Judaism, the God of Islam, which a lot of people don't. It doesn't matter. We're all equal. We're all humans. We are all the same. It doesn't matter what color you are, what language you speak, whatever. No life is worth more than another. And one of the problems with both the American, God bless America stance and the Israel, we are the chosen people stance is it implies that there are people who are more important than other people, people whose lives matter more than other people. Anytime you hear the Israelis talk about, for every, Israeli killed, we're going to kill 100 Palestinians. Well, you know who did that? The Nazis. For every German soldier who was killed, we're going to hang 100 people. We're going to shoot 100 people. We're going to burn that village. We're going to do. Israel has become that which was trying to destroy it. That's one of the things here. So, getting back to your question, I think we're going to see a lot of desperate acts by a lot of desperate people trying to silence voices that, for the first time in a long time, are starting to resonate. There are people now who aren't afraid. That's the other thing, is people become fearless because it's hard to shut them down. People can now get out there and call out Zionism as the political scourge that it is. And yes, they'll be attacked, but they'll also find a lot of support. And there's people saying, see, the internet has built up this whole anti-Semitic thing. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. There's a whole bunch of communities out there on the internet. There are communities of hate. There are communities of intolerance. There are communities of whatever you want to say it. That's the consequence of free speech, ladies and gentlemen. Free speech means everybody gets to speak. The difference here is that I don't have to embrace that which is put out there. There's the people watching right now, if you don't like what we're saying, Alex, I don't mean to do this to your show, but if you don't like what we're saying, click. Turn it off. Stop watching. You don't have to watch. No one's paying you to watch. You don't have to watch. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here. Alex cares because I care about but the bottom line is I don't care. If you don't like what you're hearing, go find something that you do like. But see, the beauty of it is where there is quality, people tend to gather around, and good ideas beget good listeners and good participants and good audiences. And this is a good audience because you have good guests and you talk about things like that. You can't shut Twitter down because there are voices on Twitter that you disagree with. What you need to do is say, thank God, not only that they get to speak, but I get to speak and to counter them. Because if you're saying you need to shut them down, what you're saying is your voice isn't strong enough to compete against them. I'd like to believe that my voice can compete against any pro-Zionist voice out there. I have an open challenge to anybody that's taken a different point of view on the issue of Israel to debate anytime, any place. You name it, we got it, buddy. But they won't. Piers Morgan, he's out there attacking people. He basically, bans people, blocks them, doesn't want to have that discussion.
Yeah, he has a fallback answer or the fallback comment all the time. Israel has its right to defend itself. But here's something I want to ask you, Scott, because I get this from a lot of people watching the show. They say, we were at a bar, we were at a restaurant, we were at our uncle's house for the weekend, and somebody brought up the Israel-Palestine, and they're saying, like, is there a way that we can try to engage? And most of it is, I would say, a lot of the people say, the Piers Morgan line, well, Israel has its right to defend itself. I think the average person watching this program has probably either been involved in a conversation like that or has been pulled into a conversation like that, and sometimes maybe a bit afraid to answer back. Is there a go-to I don't know. You are a person that I would love to have beside me when I'm sitting in these situations where people just come right at me. And
I'll tell you what I would do in a bar. Come at me at a bar. Israel has the right to exist. I go up to him and I say, give me your keys to your car. Give me your keys or I'm going to break your damn neck. Give me the keys to your car. And I'm taking your car and I'm going to your house and don't you dare show up. And then when you come up and say, I want my house, I'm going to say, what? You think you have a right to defend yourself? I'm going to kill you because I have a right to defend myself. And you're going to say, but you have no right. You stole my house. I have an inherent right to defend myself. I stole your house and now you want to come and get it back, I'm going to kill you. But you can't do that. It's my house. I have an inherent right of defense. Welcome to the Israeli argument. They stole the Palestinian land. They stole everything. And then they say, when you dare come back and say, I want it back or I want to challenge you, you can't. I have a right to defend myself, and I have Big Brother America that's giving me the airplanes, the bombs, and everything to do it, because we guarantee that Israel has the technological supremacy over any potential enemy. The occupier never has an inherent right of self-defense against the occupied. That is international law. That is what the International Court of Justice decided in 2004 about this very issue. So that's what I would just tell people, that Israel's the occupier, and they have no inherent right of self-defense against anything the occupied do in relation to the actions of the occupier. And then, they can, then I'll just take, give me your damn house. And don't come near me because I have an inherent right of self-defense, and I'll kill you the moment you step across the threshold. No, well, you can't do it. You just said Israel could. Why can't I? Why can't I steal your house and say, get the hell out of here? You just told me Israel has an inherent right of self-defense. They don't. See, if I steal your house and I'm in your house, you have every right to come in and kill me because I stole your house. You're in the right. I'm in the wrong. Israel's in the wrong here, especially Eretz Israel, this political Zionist, infused Israel. I would say this, that the Israel defined by the 48 borders and the 67 borders has a right to exist. And if you're attacking the Israel of 48 and 67, then Israel has an inherent right of self-defense. But what Israel's doing to Gaza right now is not, everybody's like, they got out in 2005. There's a thing called CLA and COGAT. And I just asked people to go and Google it. The Israelis give you a nice, convenient website that explains what it is. The Civilian Liaison Agency, and COGAT is the military arm. They manage everything that happens inside Gaza. Don't tell me that Israel is outside of Gaza. Nothing happens in Gaza unless Israel says it happens. Unless Israel approves it. Nothing goes into Gaza unless Israel says it's approved. If Israel had nothing to do with Gaza, why can't Gaza have a port? Why won't Israel allow shipping in and out of Gaza? Because they can't allow the Palestinians to be in control of their lives. Why don't they have an airport? Why can't Palestinians get a Palestinian passport, go to the Palestinian airport, and fly around the world like we all do? They can't. Why? Israel says they can't.
Scott, let's talk about that.
Gaza. Israel occupies Gaza. Israel controls every aspect of Gaza.
Let's talk about that, because I think the average person doesn't really understand, still to this day, what this occupation means. Let's talk about, if you're a Palestinian today, what are your chances of going to an airport, going for a walk on the beach, leaving, coming back, communicating with loved ones around the world? Internet, no internet. I mean, what rights do they have, if any, Palestinians? And really, the future, they've wiped out, 4,000 or 5,000 children. I mean, isn't this a recipe for an underground movement to say, wait a minute, this is a whole young generation coming up. They've been battered and beaten down, and brothers and sisters have been killed. I mean, Israel really thinks that they're going to get the message through. I mean, isn't this a recipe for disaster?
Well, it is a recipe for disaster. Let's just put it this way. If you're a Palestinian, you have no rights. None. Zero. Now, I know there's going to be lawyers out there say they have an inherent right of being treated like human beings under the... No, they don't. And the proof is what's happening right now. 12,000 have been murdered. Where are their rights? Where are their rights? They don't have any rights. Nobody's going to go to jail for murdering them. 12,000 murders, 4,000 dead children. All those people out there, we care about the kids. We care. You don't give a damn about the kids. If you did, you'd be up in arms, fuming at the mouth, storming the gates. No, you're like, oh, we're hard. They have no rights. None. Zero. No one's doing anything. Now, there's people in the streets, and God bless those people. Please continue to do that. But we all know what happens eventually. The demonstrations, they can't go out there forever because they got to go to work. They got to earn a paycheck. They got to go home. They got to feed the kids. They got to do this. They got to do that. And eventually the demonstrations peter out. The nations that could do something aren't doing anything. This is why, again, China, step up to the plate. Do something. Be the leader you claim you want to be. It's China's time to shine. It's China now that can take the lead in solving this problem, because America isn't going to. America can't. We've been discredited. We're not impartial. It's time for China to shine. But, the way you shine is that you have to pick a good versus evil. And I think it's time now that we recognize that Israel is on the side of evil right now. China needs to side with the Palestinians in a fair way. But I mean, this is we're at a state right now where if you want to say the Palestinians have rights, then you have to stand up and defend those rights. You have to defend them. There's a whole bunch of French lawyers that have come out and said, we're going to defend you. Well, then do it. I'm glad you came out and said you're going to do it. The proof is in the pudding. I want to see case after case after case after case filed in the International Criminal Court. I want every single Israeli pilot to be indicted. I want every Israeli soldier, every Israeli politician. If you hold an Israeli passport, you need to be indicted for the crime of mass murder, collective punishment. You're all guilty of it. Because you allow it to happen. This maybe the Israeli passport thing was a little bit too much, but but my point is, you have to start standing up and defending Palestinians if they're to have any rights. Because if no one's going to stand up and defend them, then they have no rights. You talk about walking the beach. Really, there's cases where boys went to play on the beach, as boys are wont to do, and the Israeli Navy killed them. Who stood up for their rights? There's a case where mothers are with their children in their home trying to prepare the afternoon meal. Bam, bomb got them. Who stood up for their rights? Don't tell me that the Palestinians have rights. They don't. They have no rights. They don't have the right to live. They don't have the right to breathe. They don't have a right to eat. They don't have a right to travel. They have no rights. They're not even people. They're just statistics. And the proof again is in the numbers. Because one should be too many. One should be too many. But 12,000 weren't just like, because here's the funny thing. Talk to the Americans. I mean, I always love this one when a stupid American diplomat gets out there. 12,000's too many. Well, what's an acceptable number, boy? 12,000's too many. 8,000, that a good number for you? So if you're the Palestinian and you got in the lottery and you pulled number 7,999, you don't count. But if you got lottery number 8,001, your life matters now, because 8,000 is too many. I mean, it's just the dumbest thing in the world for anybody to ever say that 12,000 is too many. One is too many.
Scott, how does China get involved?
Well, how did China get involved with Saudi Arabia and Iran? China is a global power. China has global interests. China's interests seem to be grounded more in stability than trying to impose Chinese will. I mean, the funny thing is China brokered this deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And how many Chinese troops then moved into the Middle East to take over that base that Iran promised them in exchange for this? Or how many Chinese airplanes flew to Saudi Arabia? None. That's my point. China didn't do this to get into the Middle East and take over the Middle East. China did it because they need Iran and Saudi Arabia to trade with them via BRICS, via the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They need that to get the Chinese, economy, the Belts and Roads Initiative and the new Silk Highway to connect with the Middle East, to do this thing that China's really good at, which is promoting global trade and commerce. That's what they need: stability, long-term stability, not short-term, long-term stability. So China is the only nation that is looking for, for instance, if they were to get involved in a solution, and they've been saying they're prepared to do this. It's not like I'm asking China to do something China's been saying for years, we're ready to take the lead on resolving this issue. But their solution isn't going to be in America. See, America can't give you a solution because we're dealing with a Congress that's bought and paid for by Israel. The last time I checked, Israel doesn't own the Chinese government yet. Who knows? Down the road, it may happen. But in the United States, our government is bought and paid for by Israel. They own it. So everything we do is going to be a short-term focus for the short-term benefit of Israel. We're not looking for any long-term solutions. This is why whenever America is involved in a two-state solution discussion, it immediately disappears, because we have to be responsive now to the immediate political needs of an Israeli political class that survives because of America. And so if we're doing something that makes it uncomfortable for them, we have to immediately correct the course in short term. China is long term. China is about economic. Here's the other thing too. Take a look at Gaza. Who's going to rebuild it? Who has the resources to rebuild it? Who has the ability to leverage their global economic clout into rebuilding? The United States can't. Again, we got money, but hell, we're the only way we could rebuild. The only way we could rebuild Gaza is if we sold more bonds to China to raise the money to rebuild Gaza. I mean, that's the ridiculous state of the American economy today. China, on the other hand, again, the Chinese government has to decide what's in its best interest. But one of the things that China can offer, and again, look at how excited Benjamin Netanyahu got about at the General Assembly debate when he was showing the map, not of the Iranian bomb as he used to do, but of the map showing the Middle East, India economic corridor, the India Middle East economic corridor that came up through Haifa connectivity, and he's like, "Oh, Israel's going to be." China can offer that to Israel. China's the only one that can offer that to Israel. China can offer that to Israel. China can offer to rebuild Gaza. China can be the voice of sanity and stability that's premised on the economic well-being of all parties in play. China doesn't care what your domestic politics are. That's the difference between China and America. We come in and tell you how to wipe your nose. China comes in and just says, peace, harmony, what you do inside your borders, your business. But what we need you to do is live in peace and harmony with your neighbors and promote this economic machine to keep this thing going for all parties, for everybody to succeed. It's a different approach in America, which is purely a selfish, security-oriented approach. What's in it for us? What do we get out of this? How do we enhance our military posture in the region with a treaty, with this, with that, and the other thing? I think the Chinese approach is much needed right now. So China brings in a fresh approach with the ability to back up policy objectives with resources, should China decide that that's where the resources go. And I think the Chinese probably would say, if you could get a long-term peace between Palestinians and Israelis, and then Israelis and the Arabs, that might be worth the investment. So we'll see. But I think China brings a whole fresh approach, a truly impartial approach, and one that's much needed, and one that, frankly speaking, isn't owned by Israel, and which will do more than just pay lip service to the Palestinians. Because the Palestinians, everybody talks about Palestine, but they don't mean it. Nobody means it. Nobody supports the Palestinians. Nobody ever has. Maybe China can be that nation that actually steps up and says, when we are out here advocating for Palestine, understand that we are advocating for Palestine and we mean it. That would be nice.
Scott, I mean, there's been some talk about this natural gas find off the shores of Gaza. It's quite a big project. It was brought up in the news years ago, and now again it's starting to come back into the headlines. Gaza's multi-billion-dollar gas field. I don't know if you know much about it or heard much about it, but this could possibly be a Chinese angle, if anything, if you know what I mean. Like,
well, it could be. I mean, there's a giant gas field off the coast, in the Eastern Mediterranean. And it's being divvied up by Egypt, by Cyprus. Turkey's trying to impose its will on that. But in the immediate thing, when you talk about Israel is is competing against two of their neighbors. One is Gaza, which has, if it was a sovereign state, a economic zone that it gets to develop. And it's you draw a line from the border out in the sea, it goes out to a certain distance, and that's their zone, economic exclusivity zone. Israel does the same thing. Israel almost got in a war with Hezbollah because Israel has drawn a line that sort of jotted up to take over part of the Lebanese claim, and Hezbollah went, we exist only to prevent you from stealing Lebanese land, so you're going to have to readjust that line. And guess what Israel did? They readjusted the line. But there's all that gas. It needs to be developed and exploited. One thing that no one's going to do is spend hundreds of billions of dollars to develop this if their investment has a chance of going up literally in flames through a regional war. So China can talk about the kind of stability, and you attach money to it, gas development, etc. People start paying attention. And then B, it's in China's interest, because if you develop it, maybe you want to bring in some Chinese, gas developers, and China can, has an economic. Every nation has a right to pursue its own thing. Who knows? But China, I think that is a player. But right now, for the Palestinians, it's just a faint dream, because Israel will never let it happen, because there is no Gaza, there is no West Bank, there is no Palestine. There's only Israel. So we need to change that reality. We need to make a Palestine that can advocate for its own economic interests and negotiate with whomever they want to negotiate to develop its resources. And China could be a player in that.
I really think that China is actually one of the only players that can rebuild an infrastructure on nations that have been torn apart. I mean, let's pivot over to Ukraine right now. I've asked this question a few times, and you've answered it in detail on the show many times. Is that land that people have been fighting over, where everyone's at a standstill on the Russian side and the Ukraine side, and bombs going back and forth? I mean, it's torched land, it's mined land. I mean, is China one of the only nations that can rebuild something like this? Because we are talking, huge amounts of land. I mean, I saw an interview the other day where they were in the old steel factory, walking through there and seeing that just completely bombed out. And the guys that were walking through, Lancaster and another guy running a channel there, said, this could be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I mean, it's just in a plant to rebuild it. So is China, and I think you're onto something here, is China one of the only nations that can really rebuild these nations that have been absolutely flattened by war?
Well, let's be clear that Russia will rebuild Russia. And they're not, I mean, I can't speak for the Russian government, but I take a look at what they've talked about, the priorities set forth by President Putin regarding the 4 new territories and Crimea. And he said that, rebuilding the economic and social infrastructure of these places, bringing it up to Russian standards, is the top priority of his government. Now, if this conflict continues to a point where Russia assumes control over, some Russian leaders, Medvedev and others have insinuated that, Russia will probably take 5 more oblasts, 5 more territories. That's almost half of Ukraine. But Russia will assume responsibility for that. I think where China comes in is, in addition to being a economic partner with Russia, because by being a good partner with Russia, you empower the Russian economy to the point where it can feasibly divert billions of dollars worth of resources to rebuild these new territories. But Russia's not going to rebuild Ukraine per se. At least it won't be their top priority. And the West is abandoning Ukraine like a bad habit. Plus, Ukraine, I believe, whatever exists, will be under a period of Russian domination where denazification is a reality, and the West isn't going to invest into that. China might. China, might be willing to go in and and extend the Belts and Roads Initiative into Ukraine. And I think Russia might be inclined to let them happen, because the last thing Russia needs is a Ukrainian cancer festering on its borders. Mm-hmm. When this war ends, Ukraine needs to be brought back into being a functional, nation based upon logic. And China could be of assistance there, I believe. Again, I can't speak on behalf of Chinese politicians and what their priorities are, but again, I think they also agree that Ukraine can't be this infected mass just putrefying on the flank of Russia, that Ukraine will have to be healed. And China could play a role in that if China wanted to. As I said, I think Ukraine is going to be abandoned by the West, and it's not going to be Russia's top priority. Russia's top priority is Russia. But I don't think Russia would impede a nation like China, a friendly nation, coming in and helping rebuild Ukraine, so that as Russia rebuilds, Ukraine rebuilds, and at some point in time, you'll have 2 healthy nations that will have to figure out how to live in peace and harmony with each other.
I have a comment up on the screen here. U.S. wins in Argentina, the recent elections. Have you got any comments on that?
Well, it's definitely goes against the trend of what was happening. You saw what I'm interested in is what's Argentina's status with BRICS going forward, because they were one of the nations that signed on to join BRICS, and they're supposed to be brought in early next year. But a key aspect of BRICS is de-dollarization, and the new Argentinian president said no, he wants to re-dollarize the Argentine economy, and he's going down a path that runs counter to all of his neighbors and all of the global South. So, he will definitely be an outlier. Argentina will be an outlier. And now the question is America the economic ally that Argentina can rely upon? And all I would caution the Argentinians is that you're not the 51st state. You can wave the American flag as much as you want to. You can say all nice things about America all you want. Thank you very much. But you're not the 51st state, and you are so low on our list of priorities, it's not even funny. We got a whole bunch of things we got to do here at home. They're fighting over money for Ukraine and Israel. And I don't know what you think America is going to do, because the one thing we will do is punch you over to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And history shows that once they get their grips on an economy like Argentina, the conditions that they put on this money are very strict and very demanding, and the population just simply isn't going to put up with it. And I think that this president's not going to be around for very long.
That's interesting. I saw another comment the other day where people were saying, of countries in the European Union where people were, really complaining. The Poles were saying, we'll let in certain.
But he did a celebration where they celebrated Christmas and the pageantry, the music, and then watching the best part about it wasn't just the beauty and the pageantry of it, but watching the sincerity in the eyes of the assembled faithful. These are believers. These are people that define themselves as Orthodox Christians, and they were there in Moscow celebrating this very important holiday. And if you didn't see that, and I just make the distinction, I know there's some devout people in America who view Christmas as a religious holiday, but most Americans, we've commercialized it. We've turned it into shopping, buying gifts, ho, 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 Grinch, all this kind of stuff. And we forgot the basic lesson that as Christians, this is celebrating the birth of the man, the child who came on to be Jesus, who then moved on to be, Christ. We lost touch with that. The Russians haven't. The Russians are a nation of faith, and they're true to their faith, and not just their Christian faith. Again, going back to the trip to Grozny, they took me to the Shali Mosque, which is this beautiful mosque that they built, and I was given a tour of it. We were given a tour of it by the Grand Mufti, the head of the faith for Chechnya. He explained, the Chechens are Sunni Islam, but they practice a mystical version of it known as Sufism. And it's a very peaceful religion. I mean, the Chechens have a reputation, well deserved, of being warriors. But their religion isn't a religion of violence. Their religion's a religion of peace. And he explained it to it, and you see the Chechens living that out. You see them living together with Russians today. In 2002, Grozny was leveled. It looked like Stalingrad, bombed into oblivion. Today, as you drive into Grozny at night, it looks like you're going into Las Vegas. The lights are everywhere, the buildings well lit, broad streets, peaceful people, Russians and Chechens living together in peace and harmony. I call it the Chechen miracle, what has happened. But the Chechens take their religion seriously, the Islamic faith. And there's no conflict between the Christians and the Muslims in Russia, because there's this sense of respect. The Russian Slavic people define themselves as Orthodox Christians, but they're part of a Russian nation that includes people of many faiths. And the Islamic faith is one of them. The way Islam is practiced in Chechnya, the way it's practiced in the Tatarstan and Bashkiria and elsewhere, where the Buryats have their own faith. the Russians respect the cultural identity, the religious identity of the people that constitute the Russian Federation. And you have to witness it firsthand to understand it, to see the devout nature of the Russian people when it comes to their Orthodox Christianity, but also to see how they are willing and able to live in peace and harmony with people of different religions. In the United States, we give short shrift to this. We don't recognize this. This is a huge reality of modern Russia.
So, you're in the process of doing the movie. How did this latest trip, how does it relate to the movie that you're making?
Well, it helps bring closure to a couple things because I got to do something that was quite unique. And then you asked where I went. Well, in addition to going to Grozny, I returned to Crimea, and then I had the opportunity to go to Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk, the four new republics. I went to, this is a war zone, so it was a tricky trip. But I got to go there, meet with people, talk to people, experience the reality of that. I speak of this trip as almost like an epilogue of the movie, the sort of the closing chapter of it. I don't know what I'll call it. I think I'm going to steal from George C. Martin, a song of ice and fire, to invoke the winter imagery of Christmas and New Year's, but fire, the war, the conflict, and how it defines and shapes Russia. And when you speak of, trying to discover the Russian soul, I think the insights I got on this trip into the spirituality of the Russian people through Christmas, through New Year's, and the resilience and determination of Russia in the face of adversity through the war. I think A Song of Ice and Fire is probably a good title for the last chapter of my book, and for how we're going to incorporate this into the movie, because it allows me to put a punctuation mark at the end of the search for the Russian soul. I'm not going to claim that I have captured it perfectly, but I can say that the May trip exposed me to the Russian soul. I got a deep understanding, but I was left with unresolved issues. Those issues have been resolved because of this trip, because of the closure that was brought to bear regarding, again, the spirituality. You have to experience Russia in winter during this holiday season to understand the Russian people, just like you have to experience Victory Day in May to understand the Russian people. You have to see how this impacts them. You can't just read about it. You can't watch somebody else talk about it. You have to be there. You have to feel it. You have to experience it. It's visceral, coming from the people to you. You absorb this energy from them. And this trip allowed me to do that. So I feel much more confident in my ability to articulate at least my interpretation of the Russian soul.
I'm sure you get into many conversations about the Ukraine, right?
Well, I mean, again, going through these four territories, it's all about Ukraine. Going to Crimea, it's all about Ukraine. The war dominates everything. So of course, I had numerous conversations with both political figures, military figures, and the average Russian citizen about this conflict.
So do these people know what the mass media in America is projecting to Americans?
They are the Russian people are some of the most informed people on the planet about these issues. They, you can, in America, we mock them. They don't have public, they don't have toilets. They don't have running water. They have everything. They also have the internet. And while the Russian government, does block certain content on the internet, there's this thing called a VPN, which every Russian citizen has mastered, and they all have the virtual private network or whatever it's called. In there, they can watch everything, and they do watch everything. They are aware of everything that's being said in the West about Russia, and it entertains them because it's just so stupid. I mean, literally, it's just, but it dismays them because they don't understand what is the source of all this ignorance. Because it's not just getting it wrong. It's not just about a minor misinterpretation of data. This is just outright ignorance about what Russia is, who the Russians are, what Russia wants. Um, and they're dismayed by it because it's not accidental. It's not just a reflection of stupidity or a lack of knowledge. It's deliberate. This is a deliberate effort by people who know better to misconstrue, to misrepresent the Russian reality. And it is dismaying to the Russians that the West would do this because we're talking about war. We're talking about the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, the displacement of tens of millions of people, the wasting of trillions of dollars of resources, um, all for a lie that's being promulgated by the West, and the West knows it's a lie. That's the saddest part. You
Right.
can't sit here in the West and say, no, what we're saying is the truth. The West knows they're lying. I mean, I engage in these stupid Twitter wars with these so-called intellectuals in America. Um, and they know what they're saying is wrong, that it's a lie. But they're deliberately doing it because their job isn't to seek the truth about Russia. It's to put Russia down at any cost, and the cost is truth. They're lying about Russia. They know they're lying about Russia, but they don't care.
So I used the phrase mass media a couple of minutes ago. We're so inundated with falsehoods when you put the TV on or you read the newspaper or whatever. Your efforts to bring an understanding to the West of what life is like in Russia, since we're so inundated with falsehoods, how many people do you honestly think will have an aha moment? Oh yeah, that's more realistic.
You know, every journey starts with the first step. And the first step, a journey of 1,000 miles is quite intimidating when you take that first step because you realize you have so much more to go. And as you enter that journey, especially if the first part of the journey is, say, through mountains, through forests, very difficult journey, you're like, holy cow, can I do this? This is impossible. But you keep taking that step forward, you keep moving on it. And soon you break out of the mountains. And as you travel, you meet people and you become more comfortable with life on the road. And as you make progress, suddenly you're not 1,000 miles away from the end, you're 700 miles away because you've traveled 300. And suddenly the journey isn't as daunting. And you keep traveling until at the end, you make that final step and the journey's complete. Right now, Cynthia, we're about 100 miles into this 1,000-mile journey, and we're still in the mountains, and it's daunting. There's cliffs that have to be scaled. There's treacherous passes that have to be navigated. Um, and if you look at it from that perspective, it's intimidating, and you're like, why am I doing this? But I know that if I keep taking a step forward, it's going to get easier and easier because more and more people are learning. And remember, it's about connectivity. Okay, I speak with you. That's two people, not enough. But our video is seen by 1,000 people. Say 200 of them absorb the data. And now we're at 202, Cynthia. That's better than just two. And then as we go on, they talk to people and you start to create this critical mass. And by the time this journey's over, we will have millions of people on our side, and we're getting there. We're getting to that point. We have a lot of work to do, but I judge the success of my project by the ferocity of those who oppose me. Cynthia, we're scaring the hell out of people. We are
Really?
scaring the hell out of people. And if our journey wasn't making any progress, they'd ignore us. We'd be nothing. Oh, they're scared, Cynthia. They're scared. So they're attacking us. They're bringing all the tools to bear on it. And this is wonderful because it means that what we're doing frightens them, because we're about the truth. We're about undoing the lies that they're telling. And it makes the journey even more desirable. The harder it gets, the more I want to do it, because I realize I'm scaring these people. The truth empowers me. The truth frightens them. And it's an amazing thing.
So do you think there's a possibility that you could change the paradigm for 2024?
There's a possibility that we can change the paradigm for 2024. Me by myself, no. I'm just one person.
Okay.
But the project that I've started, there's a lot of people working with me. Understand, when I go to Russia, there is an entire team of Russians that want me to succeed. Whatever success I had in Russia is because that hundreds, thousands of people, millions of Russians support what I'm doing. They believe in this message. So, and we couldn't be doing what we're doing without their support. And when I bring this message back, we start with hundreds of Americans. I think today we're actually at the point where millions of Americans are impacted by our work. Now, we have a lot of work left to do to coalesce these people into a movement that has gravitas, that can achieve something. But we are so far progressed from where we were when we started, Cynthia. We have this, your show has had tremendous impact beyond maybe what you realize, and the other shows that we do. We are reaching out, we are getting people. It may not seem like it right now, but they're there. And they're starting to coalesce, to congeal, to become a solid. And I think that if we continue what we're doing at the pace and with the effort that we're engaged in, that we can have a meaningful impact in 2024. We can awaken a segment of society so that issues of peace, issues of normalization of relations between Russia and the United States, issues of arms control will be on the minds of people. Whereas if we didn't engage in this project, they wouldn't be thinking about it.
That's pretty profound. So tell people how they could get involved with your film, meaning how could they donate or to your film or whatever else you need to have done?
Well, the film, I mean, again, all donations to the film are appreciated. Right now, because we made a strategic decision not to take the film to theaters, not to seek a theatrical release, that actually is a huge relief on the budget, because I made a movie, In Shifting Sands, a documentary about weapons of mass destruction and the drive to war in Iraq. It's a very good movie. Costs a lot of money to make, but it cost a lot of money to get into theaters. There's a whole process that's involved in submitting the film. Then you have to travel, the hotel, the airplanes, and then you show the movie to an audience of several hundred. So you spend a lot of money to expose the film to several hundred people. And then you repeat this, and the next thing you know, your entire budget's gone into promoting a movie, and only a few thousand people are seeing the movie. Whereas if we take that money, instead of allocating it to theatrical release, we use that for the production of the film. We've relieved some of the stress on the budget for the film. We can maximize the value of the donated money, and now we're going to produce something for release, for streaming. Millions of people will be exposed to this instantaneously. We are raising money. I'm not panicked about money about this movie. I mean, if you want to donate money to the movie, please do. And every penny will be used properly. The other aspects of this work, because the movie is just one part of this Waging Peace campaign. The best way people can support is through subscribing to my Substack, because that generates an income that allows me to do things like travel to this conference, meet these people, to write, to be able to buy time to sit down and write. So if you go to scottritterextra.com, that's my website, you'll see that you'll have a link to the Substack. Now, let me just say straight up, Substack's free. You can subscribe, no money at all. And if that's all you can do, the whole purpose of this campaign isn't to enrich me. the purpose of the campaign is to empower the participants with knowledge and information. And if you don't have the resources to contribute, you do contribute simply by subscribing for free and empowering yourself with knowledge and information. This is the goal. So you're not doing me a disservice if you don't subscribe. You're actually doing what I want you to do. Empower yourself. But if you have the ability to do a monthly subscription or an annual subscription or just a donation, it helps tremendously. I can't overemphasize how important it is to have an income, because if I can't pay the rent, if I can't pay the utilities, if I can't buy food, then I can't do this. And we're at the point in time where this is literally, it's more than a full-time job. I'm not complaining, but I put in, they talk about 40-hour work week. I'm putting in, 100-hour work week, or more. All I do is this. This is my life. This is what and I'm willing to do it, but I need your help. I need the help of people to sustain this. So go there if you want to help to the movie, and believe me, we can use the help. Wagingpeace.fund is the mechanism to donate to the movie. But the movie is a standalone project. There's other things that are happening too that aren't sustained by the movie, and we need help across the board.
So, Scott, within the next couple of months, I'm sure we'll be talking about again about the progress of what you're doing.
Absolutely. No, it's a full court press right now. We, summer is upon us. Before we know it, I know it's winter right now. There's snow on the trees and on the ground, but you blink an eye and it's summer. And if you haven't prepared for it, if you haven't done the work, you're not going to accomplish any goals and objectives that are attached to that calendar date. And so we are, myself, you, everybody involved in this project is, we are in the full court press. We're working as hard as we can, and we're having great success. We speak of people diplomacy. I have an opportunity to organize a trip to Crimea. I call it sort of a scholarship trip of people who want to go to Crimea and see it. Total transparency. We're not asking for ideologues to come in and promote Russian narrative. We're asking for people with an open mind to come in and see Crimea for themselves, to experience it. I'm involved in another project that's trying to expand the horizons of media outlets when it comes to Russia, to be better informed about the reality of Russia, to retrain journalists into being open to the Russian point of view. So there's a lot of projects going on. They're all happening together, and they all support one another. It's like a campaign. We talk about a battle here, a battle there, but this is a campaign where the battles work in concert to get a culminating moment where they all come together to achieve a result. And the result, of course, is the defeat of Russophobia, and hopefully to create the conditions so that Russia and the United States, instead of pursuing policies that lead to nuclear conflict, pursue policies